Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tillsonburg Town Council meeting of June 16th, 2022. We welcome members in the gallery. We welcome Mayor Molnar, who's absent. I'm Dave Barris, Deputy Mayor, and I'll be chairing tonight. Mayor Molnar is at home, but he is joining us virtually for voting purposes. And with that, we'll start the meeting. I'm going to ask Councillor Esseltine if she would read the acknowledgement of the Indigenous community. Thank you.
Thank you. In Tillsonburg, as we gather on traditional territory of Indigenous peoples dating back countless generations, we acknowledge the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Attawandaron peoples, showing respect for the longstanding relationships that Indigenous nations have to this land as they are our original caretakers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. We're going to ask now for the adoption of the agenda. Councillor Luciani.
Yeah, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Rosehart that the agenda as prepared for the council meeting of June 16th, 2022 be approved.
Thank you. Any additions? Seeing none, all in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Disclosures of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof. And seeing none, the adoption of the council minutes of the previous meeting. Councillor Rosehart.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Parker, that the minutes from the regular council meeting held on May 24th, 2022 be approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll call the question. All in favor? And that, of course, is carried. Tonight, we have the privilege under our agenda, under presentations, of the Volunteer Recognition Award presentation. And the Volunteer Recognition Award recipient is David Morris, the former CAO of the town of Tillsonburg, retired. And we're very glad to have him here. We're going to ask Carrie Lewis, who from the Heritage and Special Awards Committee, the chair, if Carrie would tell us a little bit about Dave Morris. Would you take the podium, please? Carrie, welcome.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, Council, and members of our community. It is my honor to present this award. Being a volunteer myself in many facets and voluntold my whole life, I truly believe that our community would not run and we would not have the exciting, fun things to do, the facilities, the parks, the flowers, everything visual that you can see in our community to appreciate, and the history to maintain if it weren't for our volunteers. Council, thank you for taking the advisory committee's suggestion on Mr. Morris. And we appreciate the fact that we are still doing these recognitions. We were kind of on a hiatus because of the last 2 years, and it is nice to get back at it. So this is our recipient for the first quarter of this year. We're playing catch up a little bit because we're just kind of opened up and getting back at it. So Dave Morris retired in 2009 after 36 years with the town of Tillsonburg as deputy clerk, treasurer, and tax collector from 1973 to 1978. Deputy clerk administrator from 1978 till 1994. Clerk administrator from 94 till 1999, and the town's first chief administrative officer from 99 till 2009. He was also active in the community during that time as the administrative officer and then commanding officer of 153 Varna Air Cadet Squadron between the years 1976 and 1994. He also volunteered at St. Paul's United Church in executive positions on church council and the AOTS United Church Service Club. Dave was on the original Annandale House fundraising committee that started back in 1979 and saw the restoration of the town's first mayor's Edie Tilson's house by way of fundraising. It was later recognized as a National Historic Site and consolidated by way of an addition with the Tillsonburg Museum. He continues as a member of the current Annandale House fundraising committee. Since retirement, Dave was elected as national president of the United Church Service Club's AOTS for the years 2012 to 2014 and has continued to serve on national executive and local executive. He continues to be a council member and trustee at St. Paul's United Church. He was elected to the Multi-Service Center and Stonebridge Board of Directors in 2004, which he still serves on, as well as the TCSI Board, the holding company for the Livingston Center. Following retirement, Dave was elected president of the Tillsonburg and District Historical Society, which position he continues to hold and serves as the Historical Society representative on the BIA Facade Improvement Committee. Dave is enjoying his retirement with his wife, Dag, their children, Jennifer, and her husband, Chris Jackson, and grandchildren, Logan, Leela, who are now serving in Tillsonburg after having lived in Australia and California, and their son, Scott, and his wife, Suzanne, who have recently moved to Dundas from Toronto with their almost 1-year-old son, Theo. That got a smile, of course, right? Thank you so much, Dave, for all of your work. And I'll leave it to you.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you very much for that. A well-deserved award. From a personal point of view, I've had the privilege of knowing Dave for a number of years, and he's worked and served with a number of mayors. And former Mayor Cam McKnight had the best line, and he always said, when you got a certificate of recognition for your service, it doesn't mean you have to stop. So please continue serving the community. So we'll ask you to do that. Dave, I'll come up. If you don't mind coming up, we'll make a little presentation. Yes, please. Yeah, absolutely, sure. Unaccustomed as you are to public speaking.
Mike had had.
Very well. Actually, if I could get you to move to your left, yes.
Okay.
Move a little bit more to your left. One more foot, please. Go 3, 2, 1. 1. Oh, sorry. Do 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. There we go.
Very
Thank
well.
you.
Okay. I'm going to make a couple of comments here. I guess this is turned on. Thank you for the nominating committee. From a personal point of view, great choice. Jason, I understand you were part of this and for your nomination for Dave. Dave, we will ask you if you would you like to make some comments to the people of Tillsonburg? Because we certainly appreciate what you've done on behalf of council and the committee and the members of Tillsonburg for your service. Would you like to make some comments?
Sure. Mr. Mayor, glad to see you, and I hear you're doing well. Mr. Deputy Mayor and members of council, it's an honor to have been considered for this award. I, along with others that have been given this award in the past, and those that will receive it in the future, volunteer because we want to give back to the community. I think that's sort of the bottom line. That's why we do it. A lot of what makes Tillsonburg a great community has come about by the efforts of volunteers, as Carrie mentioned earlier, and either individually or collectively in various community organizations, particularly the service clubs within the community. So thank you. Now, I was here the last time asking for something, so this time I want to thank you. And I would thank council on behalf of the Tillsonburg District Historical Society to thank you for the approval of the upcoming naming of the entrance to the soccer club as Attainable Way. In recognition of the Indigenous people that settled Tillsonburg in the 14th and 15th century. I'd like to also thank town staff, particularly Cephas, who in short notice expedited and promoted this event. The naming ceremony is being held 4 p.m. this coming Tuesday at the soccer club. And this is, of course, National Indigenous Peoples Day, which corresponds with the summer solstice. And I would personally extend an invitation to council, staff, and the citizens of Tillsonburg to attend in what is the first official recognition of the Indigenous people that settled this area, the Attainable. So we're looking forward to it. We have representatives coming from First Nations, and they have we're not quite sure what they're going to do, but I know it'll be special. And so I hope it'll be well attended. And I hope this will be the first one, and hopefully it'll continue on. It is a nationally recognized federal day, and I think it has the potential of growing here in Tillsonburg. So again, thank you for doing that, and thank you for this certificate, which I will hang at an appropriate place at home. And yes, I'm not going away. So thank you.
Now, normally in your day, council stayed till 11:30 or 12 or the wee hours of the morning. We expect you to do the same thing. Okay, all right, fine. Okay, you're excused. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. Where are we here? The next item, we welcome April Nix from the Oxford County Development Planner from the County of Oxford. She's going to join us virtually here, and we can see her on the screen. Welcome, April. And you're going to talk to us about an update and presentation on the official plan.
Yes,
April, welcome. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that introduction. So I am going
Your
to.
excuse me, your volume is really low. Is there something you can do perhaps at your end to increase it? We can vaguely hear you. I think we're cranked up here as hard as we can get.
Okay, is that a little bit better, or I will turn my microphone up as well.
Yeah, that's as high as we can go right here at this end. Just speak.
Is that better?
Oh, much better. Yes.
All right, I've turned the volume up in Zoom. So thank you very much for that introduction. And staff are happy to be here this evening to share a presentation regarding the official plan update. So I am going to share my screen. So you should be able to see the presentation now, and I'm just going to provide a bit of an overview in terms of some of the work that we're proposing to complete as part of this next phase of the official plan update. So as council may be aware, staff did initiate with County Council a update to the official plan starting in October of last year. The first phase specifically focused on updates to the agricultural policies contained in the OP, and engagement as part of that primarily focused on working with our rural area municipalities as part of that exercise. So moving ahead into phase two, we're now going to be looking at updates to the environmental policies overall. So in terms of the presentation tonight, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the OP update, some of the resources, as well as the different elements of the environmental update itself in terms of topic areas, touch briefly a little bit on some of the legislation that we're going to be looking at and considering in relation to updates, as well as provide a bit of an overview in terms of project timing and next steps. So first and foremost, within the context of updating our official plan, we will be looking at and trying to understand changes that have occurred both with respect to provincial legislation and policy, and what types of things we need to provide updates for in response to those changes. But as part of the official plan update, it also provides us with an opportunity to ensure that we continue to reflect the local context, and we continue to have goals and objectives that enable the type and vision for overall growth and change moving forward captured into the official plan. And this is particularly important for Oxford's official plan because it not only provides the context and the function at the upper tier level, but it also represents the official plan document for each of the local area municipalities. So continuing to ensure that those connections and that reflection of the local context is particularly important, and it will be as part of this next phase as well. It also provides us, though, with an opportunity through this review to evaluate the effectiveness of our existing policies and requirements, as well as look at opportunities to either improve or modernize some of our existing processes and the requirements and support tools that they need to go along with them. So in terms of this next phase of the update, there's a number of topic areas within environmental policy that we're going to be looking at, and I'm going to elaborate a little bit on each of these through the next few slides. But first, to sort of start us off, I wanted to touch briefly on legislative context. So certainly as part of this official plan update, we're going to be focusing first and foremost on changes that have occurred with respect to the Planning Act, as well as the provincial policy statement. But there's also a wealth of additional provincial guidance that will also need to be considered and reviewed by staff in terms of how to appropriately consider and incorporate it into the official plan. And we'll also be dealing with a number of other pieces of both provincial and federal legislation as part of this next phase of the update. And there's a few examples for each of these on slide 5. So in terms of the first topic area, and this is natural heritage, when we talk about natural heritage, we're referring to things like woodlands, wetlands, wildlife habitat, valley lands, meadows, as well as water courses. So these types of elements in and of themselves are called natural heritage features and areas. And as a whole, when you connect them with linkages and corridors, which can include valley lands, they start to represent more of a system. In order to help inform updates to the official plan, we will be using a background study to support the natural heritage component. We do have an existing background study in the county called the Oxford Natural Heritage System Study, and it was last updated in 2016, and the mapping was updated as part of this using 2015 aerials. So one of the first things that staff are currently working on is having that inventory map updated based on 2020 aerial. And this is to help understand changes that have happened on the landscape. This can include things like successional growth. So this might be things where perhaps 5 years ago we would have had a meadow, depending on the tree species there and other things that may be establishing, that may be starting to look more like a thicket or even a woodland. But it also gives us a chance to understand areas of loss that have occurred on the landscape, whether they've been permitted or otherwise. We're also going to be focusing on and capturing more of a systems-based approach as part of these next updates. This is also an area that's seen change with respect to provincial policy. As I mentioned before, we'll also be dealing with a number of other pieces of provincial and federal legislation that we'll be looking at as part of this update. This will include things like the Fisheries Act, which federally provides the legislative authority for the protection of fish and fish habitat across Canada, as well as the Federal Species at Risk Act and its provincial counterpart, the Endangered Species Act. But as part of these updates, there's also a wide array of additional environmental planning related topics that staff could consider in terms of providing additional policy insight or direction into as part of the OP update. This includes things like biodiversity planning, restoration and enhancement opportunities, recognition of stewardship and the role of stewardship, urban forestry, bird-friendly development. There's a wide array of topics that staff could consider. So this is one of the areas where we're asking for early input from both our area municipalities as well as the general public to help us identify any other areas that may be of particular interest or where they'd like to see staff focus some additional time or research in advance of developing detailed policy directions. In terms of open space is the planning term that generally refers to a group of uses that are largely recreational in nature. So this typically includes areas that are part of parks as well as trails. It can also include privately owned open space land. So these are typically things like golf courses. So as part of the updates to the open space policies, staff anticipate that these will first and foremost be responding to changes that have occurred under provincial legislation. But these updates also provide us an opportunity to incorporate aspects of any other local studies that have been completed. And this can include things like park master plans, trail master plans, and other similar works that may be underway. So part of the update to the open space policies will take a look at some of these other local development documents to see if there's better ways that the official plan can help provide support and overall direction to help achieve some of the goals that have been set out within those master planning documents. Water resources is perhaps one area that has seen the most change with respect to provincial policy. Municipalities are now required to take more of a systems-based approach when it comes to planning for water resources. These water resource systems are to be identified primarily using subwatershed and watershed information as part of their basis, but they also have to incorporate policies and directions with respect to the protection of water quality and water quantity for the long term. And that includes both surface water features, so rivers and streams, as well as groundwater features. We'll also be looking at updates to stormwater management requirements as part of the water resource updates. Staff have already started to reach out as part of this at a staff level with the area municipalities, as we recognize that stormwater management is an area that is developed implemented and managed locally. So any changes that we would want to propose with respect to stormwater management in the official plan will need to work, complement, and support our area municipalities. We're also anticipating bringing forward a further amendment with County Council to update source water protection policies that are currently in the official plan. These updates are anticipated to occur ahead of the phase 2 work coming forward and will be primarily housekeeping in nature, in that we have some existing policies in the official plan now that were put in place prior to the approval of the 4 source water protection plans that apply to Oxford County. So we'd like to have the OP updated to reflect what's currently in place and required as part of getting ready for moving ahead with phase 2. We're also going to be looking at soils and soil related updates. So there are currently some soil policies in the official plan. There's also been a number of legislative changes under the Environmental Protection Act, Aggregate Resources Act, and a few other companion pieces of legislation with respect to the management of excess soils in Ontario. So it's anticipated that largely any soil related policy changes will first and foremost be in reaction to updating to complement or to better align with these other legislative requirements that have changed. However, provincial policy also recognizes that soil degradation and loss is an area of concern with respect to the impacts of a changing climate. So this also represents another lens that staff could consider in terms of any updates to the soil policies. There's a number of natural hazards identified and addressed through the provincial policy statement. This includes things like karst topography, erosion-prone areas, as well as steep slopes, and it also includes flooding and hazardous forest types. With respect to flooding, municipalities are now required to consider and prepare for the impacts of a changing climate and the increased risk associated with these changes that may apply to natural hazards, including flooding. So as part of the updates, we're going to be reaching out to each of the conservation authorities to better understand any other changes that have happened with respect to flood mapping, as well as trying to get a better understanding of local flood risks and implications as part of the update. We will be using conservation authority data as part of this, as the CAs remain the delegated authority by the province with respect to producing flood mapping and regulating development in flood-prone areas. Hazardous forest types is going to be a new natural hazard that we'll be incorporating into the official plan. It's primarily focused on around risks in relation to forest fires. And the province has prepared some guidance around this. So staff are going to first and foremost be using this guidance to help do a bit of a spatial GIS analysis. This is going to try to help better understand where there may be high risk or more highly prone areas subject to forest fire risk that warrant additional consideration where development is proposed in proximity or within these areas. So with respect to climate change, PPS now speaks in a number of areas to mitigating and adapting the impacts of a changing climate. There's a few examples including on this slide. And again, this is another area where staff are also looking for early input to gain a better understanding on any particular areas, issues, or topics that they would like to see staff specifically look into in order to help inform the development of policy directions and policy goals, objectives, and related supporting details. We're also going to be looking at further updates to the renewable energy policies as part of this piece. We did propose and make changes to the renewable energy policies within the agricultural section of the OP. These policies apply to all of the other land use designations. So these would be the renewable energy policies that would apply to areas within settlements. And largely those updates are anticipated to follow the legislative changes that have occurred since the repeal of the Green Energy Act. There's also a number of other topic areas that could be considered as part of a climate change lens or development of climate change policies. So, and there's a few examples here again. This is another area where staff are also looking for feedback from the public as well as each of our area municipalities. So in terms of project timing overall, staff are currently working through an engagement exercise, and this has included reaching out to each of the area municipalities at a staff level, as well as with councils, in order to hear early input and opportunities. From here, we anticipate taking all of the feedback back to help inform and complete additional research, advance some of these mapping pieces that I've mentioned, and start to develop policy. We're anticipating that the release of draft materials will likely follow sometime in Q1 of next year. And from there, we'll go into a comprehensive engagement process. Staff have also recognized that given that this phase of the OP is going to include both text-based changes in terms of the policies, but also mapping, a more comprehensive engagement process is going to need to be developed to help support this phase. And this is something we are also actively working on. Depending on the results from community engagement and the feedback overall, staff will be taking all of that feedback back to feed into revised policies. Depending on the overall feedback and how the project is advancing, we may try to bring something back for adoption by County Council before or by the end of next year. However, if there is a need for further discussion and engagement, whether it's on a topic-specific matter or with an area municipality or with the general community as a whole, staff are also proposing some flexibility towards the end of the project at this time in order to enable the ability to provide additional opportunities for community engagement should it be needed. In that case, we may extend the project into 2024 just to provide additional opportunities to have discussions, whether it's with the area municipalities or the community as a whole. So in terms of next steps, we've currently been working through this engagement process. We do have a survey currently up on speakupoxford.ca under environmental policies. That survey is live until June 24th. We've also got a mapping exercise we've been asking people to provide input to online, which helps us people tell us where they like to go to get out in nature and how they're actively interacting with our open spaces as well as our natural spaces. So this is all going to be feedback staff are going to use in the development of policies moving forward. We're also going to have a look at some of the results to see if there's additional areas of research that we should be undertaking based on this input. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions from council.
Members, thank you for the presentation, April. Members of council, do we have any questions? Councillor Parker.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, to April. First, thanks for your presentation today. The one thing that I might suggest is to get more participation in the survey is maybe reaching out to the municipalities to have them share on their social media platforms and stuff, because I think that I know I haven't seen it and I'm pretty active on social media, especially in with Oxford County and town Tillsonburg stuff. So I'm hoping that that would be a possibility, is maybe reach out and share it so that other people in our municipality can see it. Thank you.
Absolutely. I will follow up with our communications team and have them to boost and tag some of those posts within the next few days to try to get a little bit more coverage out there. We have been doing some boosted ads as well as targeted social media use too with that, but I will follow up the communications. Absolutely.
Thank you. Good point. Councillor Gilvasi. No, you didn't have your hand up? No. Anyone else? Seeing none. Well, that's good. Your presentation is well received. With that, we're going to ask for a resolution from Councillor Parker.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Gilvasi, that the council for the town of Tillsonburg receives a presentation from the County of Oxford regarding the official plan review as information.
Thank you. Anything further? Seeing none, we'll call it. All in favor? Thank you. Thank you, April, for being with us. It looks like there's a lot of work to be done ahead. This is just the beginning, and at least we've got a footprint to start on, but things keep changing. And I know with the growth in Oxford County, and particularly in Tillsonburg, as far as residential growth, things have to be looked at and services have to be provided. So we thank you for being on that on our behalf. All right, thank you. The next item on the agenda are the traffic concerns of the Hickory Hills residents. And we have a delegation here with us tonight, and the speaker will be Claude Archambault. Claude, welcome, and please take the podium and welcome, and we'll hear your presentation. You've got 15 minutes. We're here just fine. Thank you.
My name is Claude Archambault, and I live in Hickory Hills, number 2 St. Clair. I have with me our committee members, and we're called Wilson Avenue Committee, and we're working very hard at it. So I'd like to introduce our members of the committee. We have Madeleine Aucoin, and we have Barry Kelly and John Lawrence. Thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to present our case. And you'll see me sipping water once in a while for 15 minutes because I have dry mouth caused by a medication that I'm taking right now. So if you don't mind, we'd like to present some of the issues that we're dealing with in Hickory Hills. We have made progress since 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, thanks to you, the council, giving us a boost with the 40 kilometers an hour instead of 50 kilometers an hour that we had to live with. And to our surprise, 40 kilometers an hour means 55. I didn't know that. Apparently OPP, and if you didn't know that, you're not allowed to use it, but that's what it is. They won't give us a ticket or give you a ticket or anybody a ticket if you're below the 15 kilometers over 40. That's what we've learned. If we had known that before, we would have asked for 30 kilometers an hour. But we didn't because we didn't know. So we're here again before you, and we need your help. And the committee, our committee, is concerned. And we're all concerned that Hickory Hills, the Residents Association or the committee. But we do appreciate the opportunity to present to you and recommendation that we'd like to make regarding the excessive traffic, volume of the traffic, which is excessive, along with Wilson Avenue, the main avenue running north and south through our adult lifestyle living community. And I make emphasis on that because we're not a retirement community. People think we are, but we're not. We're an adult living community. So following the presentation, I mentioned earlier that we've been on this for 2.5 years now. And following the presentation in May 2020 to the council and the subsequent meeting afterwards, all the way to September 14th, 2020, it was recommended by the council that the speed limit be reduced from 50 to 40 and the appropriate signage be installed. The work was completed in December 2020, and we are very grateful to you, the council members, for your help. Unfortunately, we are still living with a high volume of traffic. And it's not only the volume of traffic, but it also causes noise pollution. Excuse me. It's water. I'm going to show you. The high volume of traffic is still there. Not as much, but it's still there. The noise pollution is still there. The speeding, we're told that there's no speeding on Wilson Avenue, and I beg to differ a little bit on that because I live Wilson and Sinclair. So I sit on my deck if I can, if the noise doesn't kill me, and I look at them pass by and I count them. I can give you some numbers if you want to see them. But the important safety issue as well for us in Hickory Hills is very important. We have an older population. Some of them have got cognitive problems. They can't walk right, disorientation and all that stuff. And we kind of make sure that nothing bad happens to our residents in Hickory Hills. You know, like all of this wasn't there 2.5, 3 years ago. I've been living at this address for 20 years. Never had a problem. Noise, traffic, non-existent almost. 3 years ago it started. Because a good thing happened in Tillsonburg. We're growing. Don't get us wrong, we're not against development. We're all for it. As a town, as Tillsonburg, we need to grow, and we're all for that. But we think, we have to manage that growth without penalizing some of the residents that have been here for a long, long time. And here I'm referring to Hickory Hills specifically. The problem we have still is the volume of traffic is heaviest between Durham and Wilson, right down to Baldwin. It's not a long stretch, but just enough to give them time to speed. And we have motorcycles, trucks, trailers, name it. So we need help, and we need your help. By the way, we don't know the school buses that are using Wilson. We don't have kids. We have grandkids, but not kids. So we found out that the school bus is picking up another driver in our community. But, you know, it's a school bus, so what are you going to do? We're going to have to put up with it. But school buses are very noisy. Did you know that? They pass by, very noisy. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on Hickory Hills because you know us, I believe. But we were established as a adult living community. And many of our seniors, like I mentioned to you before, have got cognitive mobility issues, vision, hearing. And particularly now that the warm weather is here, then we have more of that going on because people are going out. And what we like to see too is young mothers with their dog and a stroller and a baby in it. But we want them to be safe when they come to our place, passing through, using the bridge to go downtown. We just love that. So that is a concern to us as well. We found out and realized that at the stop sign on Wilson and Baldwin, there's a stop sign there. Lo and behold, sometimes there's 5 vehicles waiting to turn left to go downtown. So they use our Wilson like a highway, and they go over there, they get there, there's 5 in a row waiting to go. And it's a dangerous situation, and we believe the danger comes from there's a blind spot created by a hill or a valley, if you'd like, between Rolfe Street and our Wilson. It's in front of the golf course. So you got people coming from Broadway. They go down the valley. There's 5 cars waiting to go out. And what happens? All of a sudden, they're on top of you because they're doing 70 kilometers an hour. So to turn left at that point is very dangerous. And remember our adult living community people. None of them, I mean, some of them shouldn't be driving, but they are. So given the concerns that we've outlined above, we submit the following proposed solution to help reduce the volume of traffic, noise pollution, and some speeding in Hickory Hills. Just a small note on noise pollution. You're welcome to come to my place. We'll sit in the living room and I'll give you a coffee and I'll open the windows. You tell me what's being said on TV if you don't crank up the volume. It's just an example. It's really bothersome. And we need help. We heard you to consider that no other development in Tillsonburg has got to live with our situation on Wilson Avenue. None. Not Baldwin Place, not Trotte Development. None. Why are we living with this? Something has got to be done. We'll recommend a few things. You may not agree with them, but if you don't agree with them, we hope that you'll give us a solution. Your solution. but we're going to propose a few things for you. Also, please consider, and you know that already, but just a little reminder, 400 houses we have, upwards of 400,000. I think it's 430 houses in Hickory Hills with a highway passing through Wilson Avenue. So nobody else has got that. I won't call that an opportunity, but anyway, so the important consideration for us as well is overall health, safety of our visitors, safety of our residents, and safety for that young mother with a stroller, with a kid in there and a dog. But very concerning to us. So what we'd like to propose, just in case I run out of time, our recommendations would be to reduce the volume of traffic on Wilson going south to Baldwin by changing Durham Drive west of Wilson Avenue to a one-way street, ending at Denrich or Charlotte. We really don't care where it ends. It doesn't need to be right away to all the way to Charlotte. Denrich would be sufficient. And what we're trying to do there is we try to educate the drivers not to come to the stop sign on Wilson, turn right. They can't do that anymore. They turn left using Denrich. They can go to Concession. They can go to Baldwin, and they don't have to do 40 kilometers an hour. They can be faster. That would be one of the things we would really, really like. That would fix the problem. I did a little test. Committee and I, we did a little test. We sat there with a lawn chair on my lawn, and we counted the vehicles passing by. And how many were they? 2.5 years ago, if I remember correctly, the OPP did a survey for us, that kind of stuff. They came back, they said, oh, there's only 680 vehicle per day. We said, what? That's a lot. Oh, no. Oh, no. Wilson can take much more than that. I almost went and sold my house. We did a little thing ourselves, a little survey ourselves, and in a span of 2 hours, from 4 o'clock in the afternoon to 6 at night, that's one way that it really, really is busy, is noon, and at that time of the afternoon as well. And we calculated that every 60 seconds during those times, there's 2.7 vehicles passing by. And it repeats itself around lunchtime, from 11 to 2 or 11 to 1. 2.7 every 60 seconds. And by the way, we broke it down a little bit better, but we had 17 trailers, 20 trucks, even half-ton trucks with trailers, 7. That's all the span of 2 hours. So the other one is reclassify Wilson Avenue from a collector to a local avenue, street, or road. We ran into a huge problem 2.5 years ago because of the classification. Oh, well, no, we can't do that because it's classified as a, I don't know if you call it collector, I think is the word archery. So now we're proposing, okay, that's the problem, change the problem, eliminate the problem, and call it a road.
Sir, are you pretty well complete with what you have? We've used up the 15 minutes, and I would like to make some comments, if I could.
So I'm out of time, is that correct?
You
But-
are,
but
yes.
You did get the,
We got all the information that you've given us, we all have in writing. So you're just narrating for us what we've already seen, and we appreciate it. I'm going to make a comment. First of all, I share your concern, and I feel if I were in your home, I would feel exactly the same way you do. And thank goodness people like you come forward with your concerns to council to make it aware of what your needs are, or else we wouldn't know. So thank you for that. There is a process, and the first process is you are a committee that you formed, a subcommittee of Hickory Hills. Hickory Hills does have a residents association. Yep. If your committee were to approach, and things take a little time here, and I just want to lay out the process in order to get the results that you're looking for. If you were to approach Hickory Hills Residents Association and the Residents Association were to carry your desires and your needs to council, it would have a much heavier hammer than your subcommittee would. So in other words, have your Hickory Hills Association address council with your concerns. That's number one. Number two, it would be so easy to sit here, all in favor of doing the concerns, raise your hand. It's not quite that simple. We have to get approvals with our town works department, our OPP, our police service board. In some cases, we have to talk to the Ministry of Transport when we do these processes. It's not something we can just, it doesn't necessarily belong here. We want to protect the taxpayers in Tillsonburg, the residents of Tillsonburg, to make sure things are done right at Hickory Hills as well as any other community within the town. You brought forward your concerns, which are much appreciated, and they will be reviewed. But the first step I would suggest is to go to your residents association, Hickory Hills Residents Association, and have them put forward your request to council. That's something that council recognizes is your association. Is that clear, or do you have questions?
No, that's very clear. You're saying to me that you don't recognize
We do.
residents
We recognize the
Hickory
residents.
Hills?
We recognize your subcommittee, but we would be more apt to recognize the Hickory Hills Association
Why
because
is that?
they have in the past, they have dealt with council right from Hickory Hills inception 35 years ago. They have dealt with us. Not that we're not going to listen to you. We will. I'm just suggesting that you would have a heavier hand if you went to your residents association and had the whole, not everybody in Hickory Hills may agree with you.
Well,
And if they
we
don't,
don't
so this is where if everybody in Hickory Hills agrees with you, I think council would push this a little harder to see what your needs are, but they may not.
well, yeah, but I'm sorry, I don't agree with you.
Okay, no, and you're welcome to not agree with me.
Okay.
I'm just saying, this is the process.
Yeah,
This is a
well,
process that
well,
council has had in the past.
No, sorry, but I don't buy that.
Right.
There's, just to let you know very quickly, if I may, there's 54 houses alongside Wilson
Right,
that's affected,
Right.
over 100 residents of the town of Tillsonburg.
right. No, I understand that. I'm well aware of that. I'm well aware of, and I believe there's 432 homes in Hickory Hills altogether. And if everyone agrees that something should be done, which they did, and we came up with the flashing sign and the lower speed limit.
Yep, that was much appreciated.
Yeah, and this is what happened. We are listening. I am telling you, we are listening. But we see a small community group here tonight of people who have a concern. What I'm saying is you would have more success if you had your entire Hickory Hills Association behind what your concerns are.
Thank you.
Thank you. Should have a motion to receive the information. Councillor Parker?
Yes, thanks, Deputy Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Gilvazy, that the council for the town of Tillsonburg receives a presentation from Claude Archambault regarding traffic concerns at Hickory Hills as information, and that a traffic study for Hickory Hills be added to the 2023 budget for council consideration. And I'd like to speak to that, Mr. Mayor. Or Deputy Mayor, sorry. Yeah, so the residents have came, they've voiced their concerns. We need to take them into consideration. This is an opportunity for a traffic study to be added for the 2023 budget for council's consideration. It's not guaranteeing that it'll happen, but it will at least put it in as a placeholder and can be dealt with at that time, because there's no money currently in the budget to do a traffic study in that area. So thank you.
So you understand what his comment is? First of all, we should vote on that. All right, sorry. No comments, yep. Okay. All right, Councilor, we'll be a minute. Just relax. Councilor Galvesi?
You're talking about us, we'll stay.
Yeah, we are. We're talking about you. Yeah, it's not done.
I have a couple of questions. Through you, Deputy Mayor, to Director Reyes. Is there data that would show volumes of traffic for comparison on Wilson Ave over the last decade?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, to Councilor Galvesi, yes. We reached out to a member of the Tillsonburg Police Service Board, and they mentioned that data from 2013 to 2022 indicates no appreciable change in volume over that time of period. That was in consultation with the Police Service Board, and we have data from 2013.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, has anyone reviewed the speed sign data over the last few months? Would this data suggest speeding is an issue?
Through you again, yes. My understanding is that Public Works has a device located in that place, and every quarter we download the data and complete an analysis of the data. So based on the previous readings, the indication is that there is no issues with the speeding, and the Police Service Board is also agreeing with these comments.
One more question to you, Deputy Mayor, to Carlos. What determines when the OPP would conduct speed checks in a certain area? This is actually a question I get from a number of residents as to basically what would trigger them to set up shop in that area, because like we're low, they're stretched thin. We're a growing community, and they're stretched thin, so it's hard to get out to do everything.
Through you, Ms. Deputy Mayor. So the information we received from the Police Service Board is that basically there are 4 areas that they use, so different factors that they use when they complete random checks. So the first one is habitual speeding. So if there is a habit for speeding in an area, they normally send someone there to do some checks, some speed checks. The other one is a random checks, a specific kind of volume. When the volume is high at specific locations, they normally go there just to check, make sure that there is no speeding. Also, when the information gathered by the devices, by the data that we are collecting, and is showing that the increase in the speed is above normal, normally they use that data as well, and then they decide to send someone to do checks in that location. So also to let you know, all information that Public Works collects is also sent to the police force. So they also have a copy of the data that we are collecting as well.
I see Mayor Molnar at home virtually. Would you have a comment or a question?
Yeah, I wish I was home, but thank you. There's one other reason why there would be, and that's upon the direction of council, which has happened in the past, and it's the reason PSB and Public Works have done speed analysis at various locations, including the location or portion of the location that's being referenced today. So I hear the questions, the concerns. They're not new. A lot of work has been done to mitigate that, and they should always be aware of additional and newer concerns as well. I would highlight that even since this material has come before council again, that I would, from a layman's position, suggest that the full and open access of Concession Street West will ease burdens on Wilson Street, but that's something that would remain to be seen, and I'm not intending to prejudice that without really statistical information, which is always important. If I could then, the only real question I had was through to the mover. of the text of the resolution is that it is the intent of the motion, if passed, that it will appear in draft form in the 2023 budget. I think you used the word as a placeholder. Am I reading that correctly?
Yes,
Okay.
the wording is for council consideration.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure it wasn't, they're going to consider the results. They'll consider the inclusion, which I think is a great resolution. So thanks very much for that clarity.
Could you hear what he was saying? You could hear at the back. I know it's the volumes are a little low. So you're not on a deaf ear. Please understand that. And don't leave here thinking that council's not listening to you. We are listening to your concerns. And as I said, with the association, with Hickory Hills Association, it's not necessary to do that, but we see a small group of people here that are affected, maybe 100 people. If we heard from all of them, that we'd know they're all sharing the same concern. So that's what we're with. So we have a resolution, Councillor. Is there anything further to the resolution? Then we'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. We have it in the budget to investigate your concern, and we'll be looking at it. It's things like this don't happen overnight. Like, as I said, there's going to be police involvement. There's going to be roads department involvement. That's be a complete investigation on this. All right. Thank you for coming forward. Next item on the agenda is the future of the short line rail in the South Central Ontario region, presented by SCORE. And I see Kim in the background, Kimberly Earls. Kim, the floor is yours. Would you come to the podium, please? Welcome.
Can you hear me now? Thank you so much for having me here this evening to update you on the future of short line rail presentation. So as many of you are aware, the Cayuga Rail subdivision runs from roughly St. Thomas, just east of St. Thomas, through Elgin County into Tillsonburg and then on into Norfolk County, and that rail serves a number of businesses. And I'm here tonight to just give you an update and actually to also request a letter of support for an funding application that we will be putting forward. So next slide, please. So the rail was actually, so SCORE EDC, Town of Tillsonburg, and Geo Rail Inc., which is the short line rail service operator, signed a letter of intent, and actually rail service was reinstated in January of 2022. And again, this rail had been discontinued by CN for a number of years. And part of the reason that the discontinuance had happened was there was some operational issues with the short line rail, and the track itself required some significant upgrades to serve the businesses along the rail and to take advantage of new opportunities. So next slide, please. Again, there is a map that just, and actually our map falls a little bit short. It should go a little bit further into Cortland in Norfolk County, but it does run again from St. Thomas to Cortland. The upgrades required for the project are mainly rail tie crossings, electronics, and some bridge work, again, here in Tillsonburg Bridge and the bridge in New Sarum. And so that is the main crux of the upgrades that we will be seeking for this project. And next slide, please. So we've performed a business case study. So 7 businesses along the rail line that we're currently operating. And most of those are in the town of Tillsonburg. There are some in Elgin County and Elmer, and a few in Norfolk County, but tied to those businesses are 402 jobs collectively. And when we surveyed those businesses along the line, again, they reported back that if rail service remained suspended, that they would have an annual revenue loss of just shy of $8 million and an increased logistic cost collectively at about 1.5 million. And currently there are the businesses along the track are again in the agricultural and manufacturing sector mainly. And there is opportunity for new businesses along the line as well. And we did do a estimate with the Short Line Rail Company to gauge about how many car volumes or cars traveling along that rail per year would make it a sustainable operation. And that was about 1,500 cars. Next slide, please. And this slide just gives a breakdown of the actual total acreage of property along the line, the vacant acreages, the number of industrial sites, and sort of the breakdown per county. You can see in Oxford County, Tillsonburg is the main and only, in fact, community with rail track through there. So next slide, please. And these are just this slide, we can probably zip through, but these are just the identified properties along the line in each of the counties where the line crosses. So the next slide will be Oxford. And again, you can see the yellow line is the rail, and those are the identified properties that either have businesses along that rail line or where there may be opportunity for business development along that line. Next slide, please. And that one is in Norfolk County. So we'll go to the next slide, please. So as part of the business development case, we looked at what are the benefits of rail, and certainly it's a long-term investment in infrastructure. It has increased environmental sustainability for transportation. We had one of our board members had mentioned they were at the FCM conference recently, and they had mentioned that one rail car is the equivalent of 300 transport trucks. So that was a good positive step we felt for an environmental case. So, and as well, just the sustainability and affordable logistics for supply chains across the region and beyond. Over the past 2 years, we've certainly all heard about issues related to supply chain and through the pandemic. And so having built-in regional assets that support those businesses, we believe certainly is important and serves the businesses in our communities and opportunities, again, for businesses that may want to start up here in Tillsonburg or in the region. And finally, again, it's a key piece of business retention, expansion, and attraction across the region, but certainly here in Tillsonburg, we've had significant interest from the businesses along the lines, and indeed some commitments of letters of support and financial commitments from some of those businesses as well that rely heavily on the short line rail as part of their logistics. And next slide, please. And this slide talks a little bit about the project. So the project itself is just a little over 7 million, 6 of which of that is eligible for identified funding that we have sought out. The requirements for upgrades for the rail track itself include tie replacement, bridge inspections, both at New Sarum and Tillsonburg, bridge repairs, crossing upgrades, project administration, engineering costs, environmental and Indigenous consultation, and an amount set aside for contingency as well. Next slide, please. So when we're looking at these upgrades needed, even though we are a regional organization and our partnership has worked together on many large complex projects before, we recognize very quickly that this was an undertaking where we'd need to seek upper level of government support for this project as well. And so the project committee identified that the National Trade Corridor Fund was a good fit, and there was some good alignment there. And so we made application to that fund through an expression of interest, and they deemed our project to be good enough that we were invited to submit a full application. So that was exciting news for us. We did request additional support for the province, but we're notified that at this time there was not a program set aside that this project would be an immediate obvious fit for. And then because the National Trade Corridor Fund is a national project, it's extremely competitive. And one of the pieces that we're going to have to demonstrate to be successful with this project funding is our municipal support and support of the business community. And so That's what we're endeavoring to do here, and as we're in the home stretch of our application process. So next slide, please. And then this is just a little more information, the next 2 or 3 slides on where the rail crossings are and the ownership by municipality or county. So this outlines Elgin. And the next slide would be Norfolk, which Norfolk has the least crossings. And then finally, Oxford. And you can see the crossings that are in question here in Oxford. There is one provincial, one at the county, but the other 3 are in fact here in Tillsonburg. Next slide, please. And so what I'm here asking you for today is a letter of support for our National Trade Corridor Fund application. We do have a deadline for the application of June 30th. So we're hoping to get our letters of support and all of our information in place by June 25th to give us some time to internally make sure that we have all of our boxes checked and everything in place. Yeah, that is our request for this evening. I did want to mention, I think I glossed over it a little bit, is we do have support from the business community, and much of that is from here at the business community in Tillsonburg. And again, they've provided us with some great letters of support and financial commitments as well. And so I just wanted you to also be aware of that. And that is my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Sure. Questions, Councillor Parker?
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Through to the presenter. With this letter of support, are you asking for a financial commitment in the letter of support? And if so, how much?
We are not at this time. We are asking just for the letter of support and outlining the benefits to the community.
Thank you.
Further questions, Councillor Galvezi?
Thank you, through your Deputy Mayor. Firstly, I recognize the need for rail, and I've talked to different business owners that that would find rail helpful. I can't but help make the comment that governments tore them out and now we need them back. So it's something that really frustrates me. But with regards to the project budget, there's a bridge inspection for 205,000, but there's bridge repairs for 150,000. I was wondering how that number was derived. I'm just going to say it seems a little bit low to me. And should the inspections reveal that there's a lot more expenses that need to happen with regards to the bridges, where would that be funded from?
Great question. Through your worship to Councillor Galvezi. We have had some preliminary engineering reports back through the short line rail operator that actually indicated that the level of work required to increase to those upgrades would be in that kind of ballpark figure of the 150,000. So there have been some preliminary reports through the engineering company that we're pretty confident in those.
Further questions for Ms. Earls? Okay, sorry, Councillor Esseltine.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. So I wanted to ask, you said, is there traffic on the short line rails right now?
There is.
There is. So it's not dependent on everything being repaired before that starts. There is already some movement. Okay, because it's now, I do hear trains in Tillsonburg. Is that the short line rail then?
It is.
Okay, excellent. Okay, and it says 1,500, or you told us 1,500 cars per year would be the optimum. Is that correct?
Through your worship, yes, that's our 3-year overall goal to make the track sustainable, and that volume and the additional weight that we're hoping the upgrades will provide are contingent on those upgrades. And sorry, I did neglect to mention that as part of those upgrades, that would bring that short line rail in alignment with the Class 1 rail, so CNCP. And so there'd be able to be an increase in traffic and an increase in weight, which would really, again, I think, serve especially the agricultural community and the manufacturing community that's relying on that.
Excellent, thank you.
Cephas Pancho.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And if council will indulge me, I'll just add a little bit of the background story of this. I mean, the revitalization of this railway is, I wouldn't call it a miracle, but it's quite something. We have a good partner, Geo Rail, that has won the confidence of CN, who has dealt with other short line railways that didn't deliver on this track, and Geo Rail seems committed to deliver on this track, and we think they're well positioned to. So this council, as you may recall, did sign along with SCORE a letter of intent with Geo Rail, and they seem to be delivering so far. So I'm really excited about that. We couldn't have done this without SCORE. They put a lot of horsepower behind this. And I want to thank Kim and Shelby and Christian before Shelby, who've all worked on this project here, because it's quite something, the teamwork that's come out of this. And I know that the mayor himself was the lead of this for the Future of Shortline Committee. And thank him for his leadership too. And really what we're seeing here though is that Future's already, there's an application in front of the town already. I think you saw a rezoning request or a minor amendment, I think a little while back. They're already investing. That asset on Rouse Street was a stranded asset, it had no longer had rail service. Now it's the home base for Geo Rail along the line, and Future's investing there now with a big capital investment to make that property even more critical in the town. So, I mean, we're seeing things turn around here that weren't happening before. And I think it's quite exciting. And as you may recall, it's also part of my business plan to support this revitalization. So this is certainly key and in line with what this town supports. So thank you, council, and thank you for indulging my comments.
Thank you for your comments. Much appreciated. Further questions for Kim? Seeing none, Councillor Esseltine, do you have a resolution?
I do, thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. So moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Luciani, that the council for the town of Tillsonburg receives the presentation from SCORE regarding the future of short-line rail investment as information, and also asking for a letter of support. And I'm sure through the clerk's office and the mayor, that will happen. Thank you.
To provide a letter of support from the town of Tillsonburg. All right, good. As amended. Very well. Questions, comments? Councillor Rosehart?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just a comment, I think we have to appreciate the fact of the industries that have jumped on board and have been support all along and have helped push this along. And we have to be very grateful for those people. We have no idea how fortunate we are to have that industry in our community. Thank you.
Said. With that, we'll call the question. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Have a nice
Thank
evening.
you. You're welcome to stay to the end of the evening. On to Oxnard Developments. This matter was considered on May 24th, 2022 as item 9.1 on the agenda, and the recommendation was defeated by council. Before this presentation can be heard or debated, a motion to reconsider must be passed by council. Councillor Gelvasi.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Parker that council reconsider item 7.5, Oxnard Developments minor modifications to zoning.
Thank you. We'll call that question. All in favor? Opposed? We are, thank you for that. We're now in a position to reconsider. In attendance to present, should council pass a resolution to reconsider, which we did, Mr. John Valley, President of Valley Consulting Engineers, Architects and Planners, and Eldon Darbison of Valley Consulting Engineers, Architects and Planners. And there's a third name here, but I don't believe he's in attendance. Jeff, you are here. So we are missing one person, but we have two. John is not here. We will ask, and I'm sorry, I don't know you.
Eldon
You're
Darbison.
Eldon. Eldon, would you make your presentation to council, please?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much for having me here. My name is Eldon Darbison. I'm the Director of Planning with Valley, and we're representing Oxnard Potter's Gate this evening. Again, thank you very much for your motion this evening. I know that you've read the materials, and I'll be very brief. Essentially, just to sort of, this is a way to tidy things up and be proactive to prevent costly delays to not only the developer but the families that want to move into the houses. What happens is everything that you've approved, your draft plan, the lot fabric, everything remains the same, which means nothing changes with the driveways that you've approved. They stay the same width, they stay the same length. So nothing is impacted there. What happens is when a street townhouse is built, sometimes what looks perfect on a plan doesn't physically get constructed perfectly. So when a surveyor goes out to pin all the corners of the buildings, sometimes what it does is it creates a zoning deficiency, very, very small one. Usually if there is one that's maybe an inch, maybe two, it's very small. But what it does is it prevents another process called an exemption from part lot control. And that simply means, how do you divide up the lots so you can sell them to families? And if you have to go through minor variances to recognize these few little inches here and there, it actually creates a significantly long delay for dividing up the lots and selling them to the families. So simply what we're looking for this evening is the minor reductions that we've discussed and that are in your package there, is to buy some wiggle room and to be proactive should anything not be constructed perfectly on site. So that's what we're looking for, and we're hoping that you can support us tonight.
Are you open for questions from members?
Of course,
All right.
yes.
We'll open the floor. Questions from members of council. Councillor Gilvazy.
Thank you. Through you, Deputy Mayor, to the presenter. Sorry, your last comment was this is to provide wiggle room in case things aren't quite built right. I've honestly never heard that in council when someone's coming for variances, creating a variance for the what if. And I guess I'm just a bit perplexed as to why.
Well, a minor variance through your Deputy Mayor, the minor variance process through the Committee of Adjustment takes a couple months. So I mean, forgive me if I'm trying to answer the question correctly. For example, in Potter's Gate Phase 3, we came back for a couple minor variances, which delayed that dividing up of the lands for selling of the units to the families. And we anticipate that because things may not run 100% perfect when you actually build things on the ground, where the wiggle room comment, it literally is just a change to the minimum setbacks and frontage of the lots, should there be a discrepancy of an inch or two. And it prevents us from having to apply to the committee. We may not even need to apply to the committee once everything's built and the surveyors pinned all the lots. But it's because we've learned from our mistakes, we're asking for that wiggle room now and trying to avoid that delayed, that process again of coming back to the committee and asking for some support for, an inch or two.
Councillor Parker.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, to Mr. Darbyson. You keep referencing an inch or two. The concern that I have is the original request was for 30 centimeters, at least for the frontage. So that's a big difference between an inch or two and 30 centimeters. I know you're not affecting the driveway, but why is an inch or two being referenced, but the actual variance that you're requesting is 30 centimeters?
It's typically, if we ask for something, it's done in 0.3 meters, similar to like a 0.3 meter reserve on the flankage of a lot. It allows for that flexibility. But again, I have to reassure council that the draft plan and all the lot fabric, all the dimensions that you've approved will not change.
Just to follow up, Deputy Mayor. So I guess my concern is we've passed a number of minor variances. We've passed minor variances on this initially as well. So now you guys are coming back again. Over the course of the last 4 years on council, we haven't had somebody come back again after already applying for the minor variances. So how off are the plans that are set? Like, is there major concerns that there's going to be issues?
No, we don't anticipate major concerns, but again, should there be a concern, like or an issue when the surveyor goes out and is 100% accurate, we're trying to avoid that delay in process for stopping families from moving into their homes. Because I mean, what happens is they'll list their house, they'll sell it, they have a closing date. The builder's trying to build the house to meet their schedule, and all of a sudden they can't buy the house because there's a 2-month delay to get a minor variance. So it's just, I suppose what we could do is not ask for a whole foot, but it really makes no difference what we're asking for. I can't imagine that a house would be off a whole foot either, but we ask for 1 foot just because it's a number that we have typically used through the minor variance process in the past. And it makes sense.
That's all from me. Thank you.
Councillor Luciani.
Through you, Deputy, to the presenter, just out of curiosity, if this wasn't approved or we didn't approve it, how does that set you back? What's the next process for your side of it? I mean, we're not trying to create red tape, and I think that's what we're about, is not having red tape.
Sure.
We're trying to eliminate it. So if this doesn't go through tonight, what is the process? Where does it come to? Do we come back to the same thing again?
Possibly not. We may not see us again if everything lines up perfectly when it's constructed. But if something doesn't line up, then you will see us again asking for a minor variance for whatever that fraction is. I must also point out there was one very, very important amendment. It's for lot 3. We had proposed 29-meter lot depth. We're asking for 28.5 because the surveyor did go out and check, and we're a little bit off. So that lot 3 is absolutely essential for the resolution. But yeah, so we would prefer not to have to come back to the committee for the others.
Further questions? Councillor Gilvesi.
I just have a comment. I'm a firm believer in eliminating red tape. So I am going to support this, but I have to say that I'm not completely impressed or sold on the process. I feel like you're asking for something in advance. You don't know if it's going to occur. Why wasn't it surveyed like ahead of time? Maybe I'm not quite understanding this. I've never seen this before. I don't remember any developer coming. I don't want to hold the project up. I don't want, people that have sold their homes not to be able to get in their home. But I am going to say that I am somewhat upset with the process.
Further comments? We have a draft resolution in our package. It hasn't been moved and seconded. Do we have a volunteer that would do that? Maybe Councillor Parker, seconded by Councillor Esseltine. Councillor Parker.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Esseltine, that council receives the request from Potter's Gate Phase 4 minor modifications to zoning as information. And further, that council affirm that the requested changes are appropriate and minor in nature, and further notice is not required in accordance with Section 3417 of the Planning Act.
Thank you, Councillor Parker. Further comments, questions? Seeing none, we'll call that question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? And that is carried.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Just the mayor at home or virtually did not, he wasn't.
No, it was a motion to reconsider. There was a mover and a seconder on the 24th of May. That should have been what was introduced, the original mover and seconder. But to the mover tonight, it was the exact same wording. So I think with the concurrence of council, they'll know that they've voted on the same text.
Thank you. That was done. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Very well. On to item 8, public meetings, seeing none, planning reports, nothing, delegations, nothing, deputations, information items. We have 3. I think the Ministry of Northern Development, Mines and Forestry on rabies control, the Tillsonburg BIA motion to approve the 2021 financial statements, and Southwest Public Health letter of appreciation. Would anyone have questions or comments on any of those? Seeing none, Councillor Luciani.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Rosehart that the information item from the Ministry of Northern Development, Mines, Natural Resources and Forestry dated May 31st, 2022, and the Tillsonburg BIA dated June 7th, 2022, and from Southwestern Public Health dated May 30th, 2022 be received as information.
Thank you. With that, we'll call the question. All in favor? And that, of course, is carried. Thank you very much. Now on to the financial reports. we'll turn that, the fourth quarter financial reports we see here in consolidated. I think I'm on all of it, aren't I? Yeah, that's right. Do we have questions on the fourth, or would you like to make a presentation on the reports? Just a brief presentation, an overall summary.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Overall, the fourth quarter so far shows a surplus, as you see, of 933,000 in operating and 77,000 in capital. We're still working with our auditors to finalize the year end, which hoping to have in the July meeting. So we'll finalize that number for that meeting, and at that time have a resolution for council in terms of the allocation of the surplus. Council does have a policy that directs staff on what that recommendation would be, plus there'll be additional recommendations from department heads as well as to where they would like to see that surplus. So it is sizable. Overall, it is, I think, higher than I think what we had originally expected. The majority, as you see on the first page of the attachment, highlights really additional grants that were received from provincial, mostly provincial government. Are the user charges, that's mostly permit revenues in terms of the increase in the development in the town. And a lot of that gets transferred to the reserves. So the contribution to reserves line in the expenditure is much higher because of that. And as you can see in the expenditure labor, there was a lot of positions that there was a lot of gapping that occurred. There was some full-time and part-time staffing allocation or that were not completed throughout the year, quite a bit in terms of fire and some other areas. So there's a number of different departments that came in under budget in labor, in purchases as well, under training, and some other line items, contracted services. So overall, we have a healthy surplus. Thank you.
That's good news. And I guess, you know, with COVID, it's very hard to predict in the future, and now things have settled a bit. So, and it's settled in our favor. So we thank you, Renato. Any questions for Renato? Councillor Galvez.
I just have a comment. Firstly, they were easy to read for us non-accountant people. The brackets were all in the right places. So I really appreciate that. And like also to staff in general, it's been a challenging 2 years. And I think this council has reiterated the need for fiscal responsibility. And I think that the fourth quarter results really amplify that everyone's worked together to achieve that goal.
Thank you for your comments. Anything further? Where are we here? We'll go on now. I guess that'll take a resolution. Councillor Rosar.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Parker. Did the council receive report FIN 22-12, 2021, fourth quarter consolidated financial results as information? Thank you.
Thank you. We'll call that question. All in favor? That's carried. The fourth quarter economic development and marketing results. Cephas, comments?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, members of council. In summary, I think that 2021 was quite a busy year. We achieved another record in terms of lead generated, one every 2 days or about 100. And we had some very successful wins as well. I think that with land sales on the Van Norman Innovation Park, which council supported, we're seeing lots of potential for future growth and strength in our local economy. So I think in summary, and we're also seeing, I should say, a slight increase in businesses opened and a slight decrease in businesses closed. So coming out of the pandemic, that's good to see, and hopefully that trend will continue. Thank you.
This is for Cephas. Seeing none, thank you. The Q4 Finance Corporate Services Department results. Renato.
Thank you. So this report highlights for 2021. This was when the Corporate Services Department was combined, showing council, financial services, corporate services, and customer services. And you can see the majority of the surplus of 320 in financial services. Again, a lot of the extra grants and extra funding flows through financial services. That's where you would see that. So overall, 378,000 surplus.
Very well, thank you. And fire services, we have our fire chief here. Are there any questions on the fire services year-end report? Councillor Gilvesi? Chief, maybe you would like to take the podium.
Thank you. Through you, Deputy Mayor, to the fire chief. I have just one quick question. I noticed when I was looking at the first quarter and the fourth quarter results that false alarms continue to consume a lot of man hours within the fire department. Are there fines that are issued for false alarms was my first question. And if and my other question would be what mitigation measures are in place to maybe reduce those number of false alarms?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, to Council and Councilor Gilvesi. Specifically, we do have the ability to invoice for false alarms. And to your point, this is something that is on my radar, is on our radar. One of the things from a fire service perspective, we have a number of incidents, and obviously any time we're at false alarms, we try to reduce that as much as possible. Sometimes we do it through incentives, sometimes we do it through economic disincentives, so to speak, to try and manage that. So this is an approach that we're working on this year to try and refine some of the processes. I'm going to say it's been a little bit lax with the turnover in administration over the past few years. I wouldn't say there's a consistent approach to it, quite frankly, but we're working to, one, identify what those root causes are and trying to address them through economic incentives, so to speak.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions for the chief? Seeing none, thank you, Chief. Fourth quarter building planning and bylaw services. We don't have a staff person here for that. Carlos, I'm sorry, Carlos. Yes, of course we do. Thank you. Comments?
So to you, Deputy Mayor, well, it was a good year for planning, a very busy year. We've seen a significant growth in the town of Tillsonburg over the past 2-3 years, and that is reflected in the plan and the revenue from building and bylaw. So in overall, I guess just a summary, for example, a total of 623 building permits were issued in 2021. 3,098 inspections were completed in the year, which is a significant number. And the total construction value, which I think is the highest record ever, $112 million. So total permit revenue, again, also record, $1,329,302. So yeah, it was a busy year, but again, thanks to the department, to the CBO and building and bylaw department, they took care of development.
Questions? Thank you. Recreations, culture and parks. David, you're here to, would you make a brief or take the podium, make a brief comment?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I can share with council the report that was written by former Director Baird, noting that targets have been achieved, largely a lot of completes on the list, and in terms of financials, COVID had a significant impact, both in terms of revenue shortfalls within the recreation department, but also within savings through placing short-term or part-time staff on hiatus, those kinds of things. So we end up with a budget surplus at the end of it, with a combination of belt tightening to offset those impacts in recreation services.
Thank you for that. Any comments, questions? Seeing none, thank you for your report. It's great. Councillor Parker. Resolution.
Yes, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Gilvazy. The council receives the 2021 fourth quarter department results as information.
We've received it. I don't think there's any more discussion needed. We'll call the question. All in favor? And that is great. Thank you. Thank you, people, for being here tonight. Where are we? Right here. Okay, now we're on to item number 14, the 2022 first quarter financial report. The Q1 consolidated financial report. Renato?
Thank you, Mr. the Premier. So first quarter, again, showing a surplus so far. But again, the numbers don't indicate really what the trajectory in terms of the timing of the expenditures. There's a lot of cyclical numbers. But so far, again, just to highlight in terms of the Q4 discussion, a lot of great work is going into managing the growth, the activity levels within the town, given a lot of the staffing changes. We are on target with a number of the business plan goals that I've seen so far in this year, with a slight delay in the Q1. And you'll see in Q2, everything will start coming back in terms of the timing. So Q2 variance reports in August, again, financial statements in July. There's a resolution as well for Q1 COVID report that will be before council at the next meeting as well.
Questions? Councillor Gilvazy, resolution.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Esseltine that council receives report FIN 22-14 2022 first quarter consolidated financial results as information.
Heard the question. All in favor? That's carried. On to the next items, the 14.2.3.4, 5, 6, and 7. Does anyone here want to see presentations on this, or are we okay with what we've read? We've done our homework. So there's no questions on any of these. Now's your chance. And seeing none, Councillor Esseltine, resolution.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Luciani, that council receives the 2022 first quarter department results as information.
We've heard the question. All those in favor? And that, of course, is carried. Thank you very much. Staff reports, Chief Administrative Officer, Mr. Pratt. There's information here on the town hall lowest cost lease option report. Would you like to make comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Deputy Mayor. Just a highlight of the report. I know everyone read it. On February 28th, council passed a resolution that council receives report CO 2201 Town Hall Steering Committee recommendation, and that council directs staff to negotiate a lease or other options with Strathallan that is equal to or better than the lowest cost option identified in CAO 2201 Town Hall Steering Committee recommendation. So as requested by council, staff did meet and had discussions with Strathallan. Particularly, we had a very healthy meeting with them on March 25th. In here, you can see in the report Strathallan's proposal. It is appended as Appendix B. Through that, we provided analysis in the report in the attachments on their proposal, as well as the updated Grayfield site figures. They had noted that some items were missing in the Grayfield. In discussion with them, we agreed that there were some items missing. So we've added some numbers to the Grayfield on that item. Again, of course, the insurance would change if we were going to ownership, items like that. So we've added them in, and the overall is on an equalized 30-year total cost with the town center mall option and a new construction Grayfield option development. The Grayfield option would still be the lowest cost to taxpayers. And of course, the municipality would own an asset at the end of the 30 years. So in front of you are, in the recommendation column, are two options, option 1 and option 2. And we left that to council to determine how much information they would like back. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Questions on that for Councillor Luciani?
Through you, Deputy, to the CAO. I noticed there is the discrepancy between what was proposed by Strath-Allen as far as what the cost would be to do a new build and by what we were given as far as VG Plus as far as what they believe the cost would be. Part of the thought process would be to try to get somebody to take a look at that, a cost consultant, to see what the actual cost would be for a grayfield site. Is that an expensive thing to do, or is that a pricey thing to get a consultant, again, another consultant added to this to clarify what those particular costs would be?
So I'm going to call on Steve Pancho because he has a recent experience where he can comment and make comment on the cost of the cost consultant. But the reality here is, Strath-Allen was suggesting a very high number. We didn't agree with that number. We agreed with some of the points. So we took those points into consideration and came up with a new number, which we think is fair. Should council want additional information, that would be an option to get the cost consultant to verify that. But of course, in the report, we used Atlas's numbers to verify the range, and it was in that range. So we are comfortable with that. But again, if council wants the exact, to get more defined numbers, we're happy to do that. Cephas.
Thank you, Kyle. What I can add is that there's two ways to proceed with this. We have a cost consultant, essentially plus VG, who's provided numbers that are substantiated by third-party research for marketplaces across Canada. We can find another company similar to plus VG, an architect or a constructing company that would then look at these numbers again and probably for relatively cheap costs, tell us again that we think it's a reasonable number, I suspect. Or we can actually, the one step to do that would take some time and more cost, but there's a budget for it, is to do more detailed design. So we just have the conceptual floor plans, as you know, for the option. You do more detailed design, you actually get to the nuts and bolts of it, and then you would actually get a contracting or a construction company to actually price it. So that's really the two options in front of council, is to get an independent third-party opinion on what we've done, or to actually do a more detailed design and then actually get that costed. Those are the options. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Further questions on this? Councillor Gilvezi.
I don't have a question per se, but I do have a comment. Well, firstly, there's a lot of information in the report. Strath-Allen's proposal would be an extremely costly adventure for the taxpayer, but so is building a new town hall. I'm not prepared at this point in time to spend any more money on anything until the other options of financing come forward. Because initially we've received different options, but they're all through debt financing. And at this time, I think there's still some unknowns, and I'm just not prepared to just keep putting more money into something until we look at other ways of financing it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Parker.
I would echo those sentiments. I think that until we have a better idea of how we're going to fund everything, putting more money into something is kind of a lost cause, because we decide to go a different route. I think we need to have a set plan going forward. So thank you.
Thank you. Further comments? So Councillor Asseltine.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Whether or not we go ahead with the build, it's still costing us to rent the facilities here at the Town Center Mall. And that cost is high, and it's not accommodating what the town needs and hasn't for many years. So it's not that we live here free. We pay a rent, and we pay a hefty rent, and the facilities aren't adequate to what the town needs. I think at some point, we've been working on this a long time. We just have to say, yes, this is what we need and move forward with it. I think we have I don't think we need to get costs from anyone else. We've had lots of information to work with. We know that a new build is going to be the least costly for us going forward. And at the end of 30 years, we end up with a building as opposed to nothing from continuing to rent. So I think we should go ahead with the environmental site assessment, because without that, we don't know that we can build in that area. So I think we have dollars to cover the cost of that. I would like to see us go forward with the environmental site assessment. And then if it's a yes, then that property is going to work for the town, then we go from there. And in the meantime, we can be looking to finance this in other ways. But I would really like to see us go ahead with the environmental site assessment.
All right, thank you. Thank you for those comments. Anything further from members of council? Mayor Mulder.
Yeah, and thanks very much. So none of the comments are bad comments, and they've quite frankly been very consistent for the last few years relative to their authorship. But so that's actually reinforcing. But staff are the ones that need some direction here. And I'm looking back at the meeting of the 28th of February, and the recommendation came from a committee that's been working on this diligently. I may not have agreed with everything along the way, but that was the recommendation that came through from them. It was supported by staff in their recommendation. It got amended, or at least a different resolution came to the floor that Mr. Pratt just highlighted recently from the meeting of the 28th of February. To direct staff to negotiate a lease or other options with Strathallan. That's the very aspect of the material that's contained in this report tonight. So I'm not gonna sink or swim on this, but staff are the ones that need some direction. And whether that's doing the direction on receive his information and do the environmental, receive his information and bring back supplemental report that reinforces some of the materials that are kind of going from the Strathallan 200 Broadway back to what would have been option C, I believe, which really didn't get introduced by council. And it's now coming back here. So outside of, supporting really even Councillor Esseltine's point is that you don't do it just because it's been on the table for so long. But there's a reason it has been and has consumed so much valuable time and information. And I think whatever direction we collectively require and need to give our leadership team, now's the time to give that, so that we are all at least in that same boat together. Excuse me.
Thank you for that. And I believe the option 2 would cover what he just said. Option 1, I'm sorry.
I'll take off the
Okay. Okay. Councilor Luciani, would you read the resolution?
Yeah, moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Rosehart if she's amenable to it. That council directs staff to proceed with an environmental site assessment of the new construction Grayfield option site in the Harvey and Brock Streets municipal parking lots to determine the extent of environmental contamination, if any, and potential for any remediation cost. And if I may speak on that. Certainly. Regardless.
Point of order though, real quick, did the mover and seconder just read the second bullet point only?
It's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Regardless of where we go with the new town hall, whether it's here, whether it's to a Grayfield site, we still do own the lot at Harvey and Brock Street. And it's always been something that keeps coming up is what is the environmental contamination and is it usable for anything other than a parking lot? And until we've got that answer, whether we want to use it for a Grayfield site for this or for something else in the future, I think it's something that we need to get addressed and put to bed. And I think this is one step and one piece of information that's been missing out of the next steps that are going forward. And I think we need to get this resolved first. And I'm fully supportive of going forward with at least looking at an environmental site assessment.
Well said. Further comments? Councillor Parker.
Just follow up, I guess, to that is, what is the overall cost of an environmental assessment?
I guess.
I can guess at that, Mr. Deputy Mayor. We have actually had a cost estimate prepared a number of years ago. I don't remember the numbers in that, but typically phase one is $3,000 to $5,000, and a phase two, which is the actual borehole or digging under the ground, would be in the range of $10,000 to $15,000. I can verify that after the meeting, but that should give you a sense.
Councillor Parker.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Until we have costing, I'm not willing to support the resolution until we know what we're getting ourselves into cost-wise. I do agree that at some point we have to address it, but I want to have the information as to how much we're spending before we invest in getting the environmental study done. So thank you.
Other comments? Councillor Esseltine.
Could we commit to a maximum price for the environmental assessment? And even if we set to a maximum of $20,000, that should get that for us.
You're welcome to amend the resolution if you wish.
I have no issue with putting amendment to the resolution to an upside of $20,000.
The seconder agree with that? Seconder does not agree with the cost of the assessment or the. Not sure. Councillor Parker, sorry.
I would like to suggest that a motion to defer might be appropriate until we can get costing as to what an environmental assessment is going to cost.
Councillor Luciani.
That's one method, I suppose, to handle it, but we have been deferring this for as many years as I've been on this council, and the council before that's been doing the same. We need an environmental site assessment no matter what, and it's not going to be cheaper 10 years from now. So if we get it done, we can at least close one door and we can start putting our steps and moving forward. But if we don't do it, then we're again waiting. We'll be into this, and the next council, likely be at the end of that, still discussing the same thing.
So you're telling me you want to leave the resolution as is?
I'll leave the resolution as is without the upside of the 20 then.
Thank you. Further comments?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, can we have that read again, please?
That council direct staff to proceed with an environmental site assessment of the new construction Grayfield option site in the Harvey and Brock Streets municipal parking lots to determine the extent of environmental contamination, if any, and potential for any remediation costs.
So this is simply an environment test on that particular property. It's not saying we're putting up a building by any means. We're just checking the environment to see if it's feasible. That's it.
That's correct. It's a piece of property we own. It's a piece of property that we'll have more information on.
And if it doesn't pass the test, we move on to a different option. Understood. Further comments? Councillor Rosart.
I'm just questioning why we can't wait another week till we get a proper assessment of what it would cost us. I don't think till the next council meeting, if that's possible through the CAO.
I don't know how long it would take to have that done. Cephas, do you have any idea? Next council meetings before the end of this month.
I believe the deadline for that council meeting is already passed, if I'm correct.
Oh,
Yeah. So
And to answer some questions here, I know that staff is under the gun. We have to make some, the clock is running out. And I think it's important that we come up with something here. This is simply an assessment of the property. It's by no means a resolution to put up a new town hall. It's just to see whether that particular property is feasible for that particular cost. And if it is, then we take another step. It doesn't mean that we have to do anything with it. We just have to have that answer. Okay, with that said, we'll call the question. All in favor? That's 3. All opposed? I'm sorry, he's in favor. Yeah, and you're in favor, Councillor Esseltine. 4 in favor, opposed? 3 opposed. The motion is carried. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the corporate services, the compensation review for elected officials. Should there be comments on that? I think it's pretty well straightforward. Status quo, Councilor Rosehart. Resolution. 15.2, resolution number 13.
The snack time. Yes.
Oh, sorry. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Parker, that the corporation review to elect official report be received as information. Thank you.
On that, seeing none is very fair. Basically status quo. We'll call the question. All in favor? And that's carried. The right to disconnect from work policy, resolution number 14, Councillor Parker.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Gilvazy, that the council for the town of Tillsonburg approves the right to disconnect from work policy.
Comments, questions? Call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Hybrid work model policy review, Councillor Gilvazy, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Esseltine, that the council for the town of Tillsonburg receives the review of the hybrid work policy as information.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? And that is carried. THI memorandum of understanding. Councillor Gilvazy.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Rosehart, that the CAO bring back a report with recommendations regarding the MOUD with THI, which may include the composition of the board or any other item of concern.
Questions? We'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Council vacancy on the Boundary Adjustment Subcommittee. Councillor Luciani.
Yeah, move by myself.
That's me.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Rosehart, that the council for the town of Tillsonburg appoints Councillor Gilvazy as a council representative on the Tillsonburg Boundary Adjustment Advisory Committee.
Thank you for the nomination. Councillor Gilvazy, do you have questions or comments on accepting the appointment?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yes, I really want to sit on this committee, but I will tell you that it is conflicting with the BIA meeting, which is at the exact same time. And I think this just brings up a good point that we need some kind of calendar that shows all the committee meetings, because things are sometimes on top of each other. And would not be the only member that's actually affected by this. There is the chair of the BIA that is struggling with dealing with both of these meetings. The BIA had a discussion about moving their meeting. Now remember, the BIA has been meeting for a very long time at 7:30 on the Tuesday morning. And the members couldn't do it. So maybe there was some discussion around the BIA last time if we could maybe shoot some dates out to this committee to look at moving the time. And I think that you're the chair, Deputy Mayor, so I'm putting an official request through you.
we have been meeting for some time now, and we just chose a time of early morning on a particular Tuesday of a particular month. So I'm sure that we can work with the clerk's department and arrange for something that will work, where yourself and the other member of the committee can attend both committees' meetings without tripping. With that said, will you accept the nomination? All right, we will. All right. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Economic Development offered to purchase lands between 6 and 8 John Street. Councilor Rosar.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Parker, that a bylaw be brought forward to authorize the mayor and the clerk to enter into agreement of purchase and sale with the properties for community living for the alley lands located between 6 John Street and 8 John Street, and to be described by a new reference plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions on that? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Finance, nothing. Fire and Emergency Services, Operations and Development, the West Wind Subdivision Road Naming. Councillor Parker.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Gilvazy. The council approves Darrow Drive, Hill Street, West Winds Gate, and West Winds Court as road names for West Winds subdivision.
Thank you for that. Any questions? Councillor Gilvazy.
Thank you. I'm not sure who to ask this to. I have concerns about naming a road West Winds Gate and West Winds Court. Like, it's the same name, but they're just changing the end of it. Like, I feel this is going to be very confusing for people. Is there, with regards to the road naming policy, is there anyone that could, maybe shed some light on this?
First question is, who brought this forward? Was it the developer that brought it forward, or were they staff recommendations?
That's for you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, there is a request from the developer for those names. It was brought to the CBO. So what I can do is bring back this concern, this comment to the CBO, and then we contact the developer and see there is an opportunity for reviewing that name. So.
Sometimes that's difficult with emergency services and mail people, etc. I'm sorry. Sometimes that's difficult for emergency services, mail people, services in the town to have that duplication. There's some that are very close now, and it might be a good idea to do that. What's the process, and should we defer this? Dan?
Well, you could defeat it.
Pardon?
You could defeat it or defer it.
Defeat it or defer it? Councillor Parker?
Yeah, I think we should probably defer this. If I can put a motion to defer, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Gilvazy, that this be deferred until we can have 2 different names for those streets.
It's probably the cleanest way. That's right. Okay. We'll call the question on the motion to defer and bring back on a further time. I'm sorry. Oh, comment. Sure, certainly.
I'm not in disagreement that when I first read this as well, that West Winds Court, West Winds Subdivision, West Winds Gate, and I was thinking the same thing as far as from emergency services and how you would deal with this. But when you look at the map and you see actually how it's laid out with West Winds Gate, you got to go down West Winds Gate to get to West Winds Court. So West Winds Court, I mean, if you're heading to West Winds Court on an emergency call, you're going down West Winds Gate, you're going to get to the court. It's no different than Lisgar Ave and Lisgar Court. We've got other naming conventions similar. I don't myself, after looking at it, I didn't find it as confusing. I'm not too sure whether it's necessary to put it back or whether the developer will even have a different name. I don't know. I'll speak in favor of leaving it, but if you're going to defer, that's fine too. Thanks.
Right now, we're sitting at a motion to defer by Councillor Parker, duly seconded. Councillor Hasseltine.
Sorry, I just had one question about that. The road on the north side of North Street that connects with one of those roads in that subdivision, the name changes at North Street. Is that often? Do we often do that? Like where the road continues? We often do that. Okay. I just thought that might be confusing for people. It's one name on one side of the street and another name on the other side of the street. We don't have a policy on that. Okay. Thank you.
Right now, there's a motion to defer. That's where we are. Further comments? We'll call it. All in favor? Sorry, again, all in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, all opposed. And the motion is carried to defer. The staff knows what to do and that'll come back. Thank you. Oxnard Development Phase 4 subdivision road naming. Councillor Galvezi.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Esseltine, that council approves Waterhouse Crescent, Burgess Crescent, and Jocko Street as road names for the Potter's Gate Phase 4 subdivision.
Questions? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Tillsonburg Airport Advisory Committee, virtual meetings, Councillor Esseltine.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Luciani, that council approves the request from the Tillsonburg Airport Advisory Committee to continue to meet virtually.
Comments, questions? Councillor Galvezi.
Thank you. I can just briefly speak on this as I'm the committee rep. This committee differs from other committees because they're not all residents of Tillsonburg. So coming into the council chambers for some of them is a bit of a distance. And furthermore, like we have pilots sometimes that come in from Toronto or other areas. So that's what the request really pertains to. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Esseltine.
We find that the Attainable and Affordable Housing Committee, also having members from outside of Tillsonburg, is concerned about quorum going forward. And I wonder if there are other committees that feel the same way, if they need to send a resolution to council individually, or if we want to make this a little more generic.
I don't have any opposition to that, but I think we should ask our staff how they feel about that. There was recently a staff meeting that talked with volunteer committees, and I was there, and one of the items that came up were the power of virtual meetings versus in-person meetings, and some felt there was a lot of input on that. And our clerk who's absent, or director who's absent this evening, has that information. I'm sure we'll be bringing it up. So probably a good point. And if I can maybe suggest we could deal with this one now and then do that one in the future, if you're okay with that. All right.
I think with some committees, it's really a quorum issue. Like if you haven't got a quorum, you haven't got a meeting. So if that, and I appreciate that people coming from out of town to a 4:30, 5:30 meeting, it's not convenient, but it's most important for the committees to have quorum. Thank you.
Totally agree. So let's deal with this one. We have the resolution on the floor, moved and seconded, about the airport advisory meeting virtually. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Recreation, Culture and Parks, nothing. New business, consideration of committee minutes. Councillor Luciani.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Rosehart that the following council committee minutes be received as information. May 17th, 2022, Tillsonburg Transit Advisory Committee minutes. May 17th, 2022, Tillsonburg 150 Ad Hoc Committee minutes. May 26th, 2022, Tillsonburg Airport Advisory Committee minutes. June 1st, 2022, Cultural Heritage and Special Awards Committee minutes. And June 6th, 2022, Recreation and Sports Advisory Committee minutes.
Questions on any of those committees? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. LPRCA, Long Point Conservation, Councillor Rosehart.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Parker, that the council of the town of Tillsonburg receive the May 4, 2022 Long Point Region Conservation Authority Board of Directors meeting minutes as information. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions on that? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Notices of motion, Councillor Galvezi provided a notion of motion for consideration. Councillor Galvezi.
Thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Parker that staff bring a report to council in regards to the property standards bylaw, specifically addressing the typo in here, the grass road allowance and grass islands between sidewalks and roads, and who is responsible for maintaining these areas. It has recently come to my attention that those little grass strips between the road and the sidewalk, if people choose not to cut them, the town has no no way of enforcing that, so we could end up with a lot of like untidy areas. So I think that I'm just completely asking for a report and a review, but if we are going to continue to put grass strips everywhere, we probably should have a mechanism to be able to deal with it.
Your resolution has been brought forward. Councillor Parker?
Just a follow-up to that point. I think that if we don't address this, it does come to us as a cost because the municipality is going to be responsible for cutting them or the contractor. So it will have an increased cost to us. So I think it's something that we need to address in the near future. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Esseltine?
To regard to that, there seems to be maybe different rules for different areas, because I know a year or so ago, I was asking the same question, and some of the green spaces on the opposite side of the sidewalk along Quarterline Road are done by Public Works, I believe, and as well as some on Concession Street going down towards the Ball Diamond. They're done either by a town contractor, I'm not sure, but I know people ask that question fairly often in neighborhoods that they live in. Why does somebody else get cut and mine doesn't? So if we have rules and regulations about when, where, and who, that might be a good thing.
Hopefully the staff report will make it very clear and with a recommendation as to who does what. Thank you. Anything further? We'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Councillor Luciani, you have a resolution.
Yeah, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Esseltine. Whereas the Association of Municipalities of Ontario has called for nominations for its board of directors, and whereas Mayor Stephen Molnar, an elected official in the town of Tillsonburg, has indicated his interest in becoming a member of the small urban caucus of the AMO board, and it has consented to his nomination. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Tillsonburg endorses Stephen Molnar for the position of Director, Small Urban Caucus 2022 to 2024 AMO Board of Directors. And just speaking a little bit on that, and I see the mayor is on board, so I'll let him speak to it himself, but this is in regard to a nomination going forward and a requirement that there's a council resolution of support in place to support this nomination as part of it. And the unfortunate part is the timing on it, and that is that the nominations have to be in by Monday, June 27th at noon, which is before our next council meeting.
Thank you. Mayor Molnar, would you like to make comment?
The only comment in following up by contacts from others, it would be member Molnar, not Mayor Molnar. There's a distinction that's important to me.
Very well. Thank you. Councillor Parker.
So just a question. Say if Mayor Molnar does not run in the next election, or or somebody runs against him and is defeated, does this position stay as Stephen Molnar as a member of the board of directors, as a representative for the town of Tillsonburg?
Through the chair, the answer to that would be no. And this is only to support a nomination at AMO, where you'd need to be elected there as well.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Just a follow up, and that was my only concern with it. I think having representation on boards throughout the province is actually a good thing. So I just wanted to see if there was any follow up. So I will be supporting this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Rosart.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, to the mayor, have we ever had a representative on AMO before?
We've had this is a standard practice. I know that's not the question that you asked. So there's been council support for nominees in the past, and I believe council resolution supporting the deputy mayor for the tenure that he had at Ontario Good Roads Association would have been a similar process, but he may be able to speak to that.
Yeah, and I will speak to that. The process that I had when I was on the Ontario Good Roads Association was council did endorse myself. When I attended the conference, I campaigned. I was successful in the campaign and I became a director. And I became a director because only those who were delegates at the conference could vote. It wasn't up to the municipalities. The only municipality that was involved was Tillsonburg's to endorse me to go as a candidate. That put me on the ballot list, but I had to do my own campaigning. This is very similar. I believe it was 2016 or 2017, 17, maybe 18. I ran for this particular position, the Small Urban Caucus, with AMO at the conference in Windsor. I was not successful. I was beat out by somebody from Niagara Falls area. And it was all about the campaigning. And again, it was voted on by those in attendance at the conference and not municipalities that were doing that. Is that clear? Do you feel sorry for me that I lost? Because I did. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I'm sure that was a learning experience. It's glad to know that because I didn't know anything about that. Thank you.
Humbling. And I will tell you this, that the stipend for this particular position is zero. The stipend I had on my position with Ontario Good Roads was zero. And it's certainly something that it's good to have someone within your council that's involved in these things, because sometimes I can answer questions that are going on with the Ministry of Transportation because those things haven't changed. And certainly you make connections with people all across Ontario. And I still have friends from 2016 when I was on the board that I have called on. There's experiences working with advocacy, you know what I'm saying, groups at Queen's Park and so on. And it's quite a learning experience. So I certainly hope that Mayor Molnar Stephen Molnar is successful in this particular conference in August. So with that, we'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Bylaws, Councillor Parker.
Right now, it reads that a bylaw to authorize the execution of agreement of purchase and sale and to close a portion of the said lands be read for first, second, third, and final reading, and that the mayor and clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign the same and place the corporate seal thereunto. Should there be some type of wording as to what lands we're authorizing the sale of? Bylaw to authorize the execution.
Sorry.
A bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement of purchase and sale with the Tillsonburg properties for community living for the alley lands located between 6 John Street and 8 John Street and be described by a new reference plan. And no, that's the previous resolution.
We're looking for 20.1 bylaw under section 20.1, resolution number 26. And you're right, we don't have the name of the land in there in that particular bylaw. Mr. Paschow, would you like to make a small amendment to that?
Mr. Deputy Mayor, I think the bylaw should certainly reference the Tillsonburg properties for community living, which I think you mentioned, and the alley lands. A legal plan has not been prepared yet, so it's in the process of being prepared. So I think you mentioned the alley lands between 6 and 8. I forgot the name of the street. John Street, thank you. That would be, I think, the most accurate information we have at this time. Thank you.
And that would suffice. So it should be added in there. So would you like to pencil that in and read it again?
Okay. That a bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement of purchase and sale and to close a portion of the said lands, which are the alley lands located between 6 and 8 John Street, and to be described as a new reference plan and to close a portion of the said lands, be read for a first, second, third, and final reading, and that the mayor and the clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign the same and place the corporate seal thereunto.
For the record, you have that?
I sure do.
You do. Thank you very much. With that, we'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Councillor Galvesi, resolution number 27.
Moved by Ms. South, seconded by Counselor Esseltine, that bylaw 2022-042 to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting held on June 16th, 2022 be read for a first, second, third, and final reading, and that the mayor and the clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign the same and place the corporate seal thereunto.
Thank you for that. All in favor? That's carried. Items of public interest. Roundtable, Councillor Parker.
First, I'd like to thank Director Reyes and Shane Reedsma for the full communication about Concession Street and keeping us posted. I'm glad to see that it's opened and having to deal with the contractor. I know it was difficult at times. The public's very happy that it's back open, so thank you.
Councillor Esseltine.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I feel awful. They gave me some stuff at the museum to bring here to distribute to councillors tonight, and about July 1st being Tillsonburg 150, and they're sitting at home. I forgot them. My apologies. I will describe them to you. There's a Tillsonburg cloth to clean your glasses or your computer screen with, and it's got Tillsonburg. Oh, Dave's got one. Oh, okay. So I will bring these next time. And then there was a save this date card for all of us for January 1st for the things that are going on. And on that save date card, there's one of those icon things you can click your computer on and it'll tell you what's going on where. And Deputy Mayor Barris may well be able to give us more information. The last thing I was to tell you was you can submit items for the time capsule, I think is the right word, and they have to be tiny because the time capsule itself is not big, and 15 items for the capsule would be selected from things that people have put forward as possible things to be included in the time capsule. But there's lots of stuff going on July 1st. No parade this time. Too bad the parade didn't come together. But there is lots of good stuff and lots of things for families and things. So I will bring it to the next meeting. It's still before July 1st.
And all the information will
Thank
be
you.
on the website as to what's happening. It'll be a day to remember. There are a lot of things and I can go through that now, but perhaps at the next meeting, which is the final meeting before the July 1st Canada Day / Tillsonburg 150 Day, both together. There are so many things and we'll have a complete list maybe at that time, be it verbal, whatever, and then we'll tell people what to do and where. Let's just hope the weather cooperates with it. But it's a full day of activities. So it'll be lots of fun. And there'll be a stellar fireworks display at the end of the night. So that'll be a real good thing. So thank you for those comments. Councilor Luciani.
Other than just a strong realization, likely from everybody with children, on how hot it is out, I wonder if we can get maybe just a short update on where we're sitting with the splash pad and the slide and water park.
We'll take advantage of David when he's here. He's been working pretty hard on this and he's got some
Of course,
deadlines
I'm
to
pleased
reach.
to do that.
Things are good.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Luciani and council and residents, pleased to report that the Southwest Public Health Department approved health inspection of the water park. So we will be open on Saturday as scheduled. There have been some delays, mostly due to supply chain. We're aiming right now tentatively to have the slide open the following weekend, and we're also targeting the splash pad for the following weekend, subject to inspection approvals. It's been an interesting journey, and we're very pleased to show how it looks and getting the kids wet. They're gonna have a blast, and we're looking forward to that very, very much.
Quick question for you before you leave the podium. With the slide not open for a week being delayed because of inspection, is there some discount for people to go in?
Oh, yeah, yes, sir. Yes, again, Deputy Mayor, that similar to last year before the slide opened, there is a 50% discount. And that was a pre-approved last year in relation to 2021 operations, and it is still in place, so we can use it again this year.
Very well, and we'll do for the ceremonial first slide, we'll have the mayor go down the water slide show.
Unless you want to volunteer.
No. All right, thank you. Councillor Rosehart.
David, can we ask hours of opening?
I'm not sure of that. That I'm not sure of. The hours of opening, what I will do is check in to confirm those hours of opening and have that put on the town Facebook Facebook page ASAP. So that's publicized.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, of course.
And I'd like to announce that on June the 26th, we're starting our Music on the Lawn. So it'll be wonderful if it's a nice weekend, folks. Come on out, listen to the music. It's always a full house.
Great news. Councillor.
That's at Annandale House.
Councillor Galvezi.
Just a quick comment. I know there was a new grass contractor in town and I'm sure some of us have received complaints, but I just wanted to thank staff, Parks and Rec, roads, that worked with the contractor. Things are getting under control and looking much better. So just wanted to reach out and thank everyone.
My comments, I'm just going to say what was said a short time ago with David Morris, that reminder on June 21st, the dedication for the at summer solstice at the gateway of the soccer park at 4 p.m. And that's when the dedication will be for the name of the street. Councillor Esseltine, please name the street for me. Adewandran Way. Thank you very much. Her pronunciation is much better than mine, and I don't want to offend anybody. So I thank you very much for that. The only other thing I can say is please note the Tego bus in town. It's decorated with the advertising for Tillsonburg 150. Very well done. And the 150 committee is almost done. There's a couple of little tweaks that we have to do, but it's going to be a great day. Mayor Molnar, do you have any comments for a roundtable? Don't know if he heard me. We're just asking, Stephen, do you have any comments for roundtable?
None other than it was from the Alzheimer's Society of the region, including Tillsonburg and Oxford County this past weekend. We joined with Multi-Service Center in their latest walk to raise awareness and funds for the great work that the MSC does in our community. So I think up next is Parkinson's walk and run coming up in the near future. So as a caring community, I look forward to supporting any of those initiatives that we can. So thanks, Council, for your patience, and I look forward to being up and at it again in no time.
We look forward to you coming back. Thank you for that. The next meeting is June 27th, the regular council meeting, and there will be a planning meeting at 6 p.m. That's included with the regular council meeting. That's just a short time away. And with this, we will call for a resolution to adjourn. Councillor Esseltine.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Luciani, that the council meeting of June 16th, 2022 be adjourned at 8:42 p.m.
All in favor? And that's carried. Councillors, please drive careful on the way home, and everybody stay cool. Till the next time.
I also focusing on getting it open. I don't know what I know the hours. It's more about how to think the facilities, make sure it's practical, and then the recreation staff.